Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sports and Shorts of Sorts, episode 15, little Father's Day edition. Start like we always do. We'll do our jersey thing. And like number 15, there's a pretty big jersey wearer with that right now. Nikola Jokic, this year's NBA final MVP, NBA champion, the two-time MVP, racks up triple doubles at the center position at a rate that we just have not seen. You look so unathletic going through the motions. You might question whether your TV is like on half speed. You check it, no, it's full speed. That's what he goes at. His basketball IQ is off the charts. Seems to be a play, maybe two plays ahead of everyone else. And it's just an amazing season by the big Serbian. You know, he's become one of my favorite players to watch. As you've seen, I have his jersey. He deserves to have a rest filled off season. There's already footage of him, cheering on his horses. He's a big horse guy, and he's got all his horses racing over in Serbia. So good on you, Jokic. You deserve the break. And a number 15 that stands out in Canada here, Vince Carter. He really put the Toronto Raptors on the map. Air Canada Carter, they called him back when they played at the Air Canada Centre. Now Scotiabank Arena, a little tougher to sell a nickname there, but his dunks just seemed effortless. Like, you would float. You would just float to the hoop. It was, yeah, some say he's one of the best dunkers to ever lace them up. I could agree with that. There's footage of him at like 40 years old throwing windmills down and through the legs. It's pretty crazy. And like, he won Rookie of the Year. He really, like I said, put the Raptors on the map. Like, that playoff run in 2001 was awesome. That duel with Allen Iverson, like, and that was MVP Allen Iverson. That was like his best year. And like, unfortunately, a lot of people remember that for Vince Carter going to his college graduation back in North Carolina. It was the same day as Game 7. He promised his mom he'd graduate. And like, he played a good game. He missed a buzzer beater. And people are like, oh, he missed that buzzer beater because he was there. Like, it's a bit of a stretch. You want to preach education, then scold someone for doing it. Like, he did both, almost pulled it off, but the end of his career didn't go too hot, with people questioning it, whether he was hurt, him coming out saying, well, I'm done going to the hoop. Dunks are only 2 points anyway. Regardless of how it ended, it was really good. And like, he played in four different decades. He wore 50 in his whole career, other than his stints in Dallas and Phoenix. And he got a few stints out there, but you got to watch the Vince Carter mixtape. Get the popcorn. It's amazing, especially that dunk in the 2000 Olympics where he jumped over Frederick Weiss on the French team. 7-2, he jumped right over him. You could see Kevin Garnett's reaction being right there. And he reacts to everything that way, but the way he reacted was pretty crazy. Probably one of the best dunks you'll ever see. But going back to the Nuggets, this is where you might have a weird retiring situation for jerseys, but excuse me, Carmelo Anthony, he was number 15, number 3 pick in that legendary draft with LeBron, D Wade, and Chris Bosh. But he did change to go to 7 when he went to the Big Apple. But, he was named the NBA 75th anniversary team. And yeah, he was amazing with Team USA, 3 gold medals and a bronze. So congrats to Melo. And I guess I got to mention another big man with the 15 retired with the Philadelphia 76ers. Shout out to Hal Greer. He won a title being partnered up with Will Chamberlain there, and he did what he could. My last basketball shout out will be to Vinnie Johnson, the microwave. Cool nickname. Because he'd come off the bench and he'd heat up. Instant heat right off the bench. He was part of those bad boys teams that won back to back titles, and they retired his number in Detroit. But that was a lot of hoops. 15. A lot of people don't watch as many as much hoops as I do. So when they see 15, they probably think of, defending Super Bowl champion Patrick Mahomes. And I mean, I can't blame you. He's the best quarterback in the league right now, straight up. And like, I'm not a Chiefs guy. I don't know, but I like to root for Mahomes, except when he's playing the Packers, I guess, or if I'm playing against him in fantasy or something. But he's something else. The no look passes, the mobility. When he was running on that injured ankle, he left it all out there. He showed a different type, another attribute to his already insane attributes. But He's something else. But like I said, I mentioned Green Bay. You got to mention Bart Starr, winner and MVP of the first two Super Bowls in NFL history. And another quarterback that comes to mind, probably more known for his college career than his pros, but Tim Tebow, right? You can get down and do a Tebow right now. Two national championships with the Gators, Heisman Trophy, championship game MVP, legendary figure in Gainesville. He had that one good year in the NFL with the Broncos when he had that sweet pass to Demaryius Thomas, rest in peace, and overtime to upset the Steelers. And like Elway had to do what he had to do. He got rid of Tebow to bring in Manning, who brought him a Super Bowl. So you could see why. I just wish Tebow could have panned out somewhere. He seemed like he just won. He was a winning guy. He might not have had the nicest looking throw or anything, but he did all right. Yeah. Going to baseball, there's only one I really thought of. Dustin Pedroia, Boston Red Sox, great. 14 seasons, Rookie of the Year, 4 All-Stars, 4 Golden Gloves, and he's part of the 2 World Series in Boston, so pretty good. But yeah, that's the jerseys, and we'll jump into the sports, right? It seems like an eternity ago, last Monday, way back, but Denver, they ended it against the Heat, right, in 5 games. Franchise's first ever title, 47 years of existence. They joined the Spurs now as 2 of the 4 teams that came over from the ABA and won a title. Nets and Pacers still haven't, but some pretty good ABA roots there, and yeah, this historic run they went on was just great. Jimmy Butler, he had a historic run of his own, knocking off great teams along the way, but yeah, they just couldn't do it in the end. Missing Victor Oladipo and Tyler Hero, I think, was eventually catching up with him. Jimmy Buckets did what he could. Bam played pretty well in the finals. Lowry showed some flashes. He's older now. He's not the same Lowry walking through that door in Toronto. Like, people called him old then. But they're just a piece away. They got here with undrafted guys. They did what they had to do. They played who they had with their injuries and got here. So people are saying they're a piece away. I think so too, but we'll see what happens with that. But back to the Nuggets. They were the best team all season. No number 1 in the West. They had Jokic, who people said didn't deserve MVP this year. He's already won 2 in a row. But I've already talked about him enough in the jersey portion. You had Jamal Murray all healed up, right? And like different players just coming up when they needed them. Like you had Bruce Brown to Christian Brown. You had Jeff Green, KCP, Aaron Gordon, and even DeAndre Jordan made an appearance in Game 5. But Game 5, Michael Porter Jr. was the guy. He finally showed up. Usually he's got the silky smooth jumper, but it wasn't dropping. He was making cuts to the hoop. He's being aggressive without the ball. Getting those offensive rebounds. Like he was a real difference maker in that. Like the Nuggets only won 94-89. Like that does say it's a little closer than it was, but yeah, that without those guys helping, they could have lost this series. But you gotta be happy for a lot of those vets, like Uncle Jeff Green. He's played for 12 teams. Ish Smith, he's played for 13 NBA teams. These guys just kept fighting, trying to get paid to play the game they love. And here they are, they get in the ring. Shout out to them. And it's so cool to see these teams in their fucking championship parade. Just encourage all the public intoxication. Michael Malone was living his best life, taking shots at LeBron and the Lakers. Which of course caused LeBron to pause on his European trip and be like, oh yeah, I see I'm still in your heads, enjoy your light, but I'm the sun and I'm here forever. I don't know if he's working on his album over there or what, but again, congrats to the Denver Nuggets. You earned this. My little special before the series started, I had them winning in 6. They did it in 5, but I wasn't really going on a limb there. And right here is usually where I jump to hockey, but huge blockbuster trade yesterday. Bradley Beal, guy with a no trade clause, waived said no trade clause to move to the desert. He's going to Phoenix. Yeah. So you're going to have quite the lineup of Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and now you got Bradley Beal. Damn. I mean, there's only one ball, but someone's going to put it in the hoop. And who the Wizards are getting back are Chris Paul, who they were planning on waiving anyway, right? So I imagine Chris Paul will be moved as another piece. I don't think he'll be staying around with Washington. But they also got Landry Shamet, who played pretty big for Phoenix. You know, he keeps getting moved. Like, all the guy does is consistently hit threes. They're getting some second round picks and some multiple pick swaps, but no first rounder. That's kind of wild. A guy of Bradley Beal's talent, you're not even getting a first rounder, but huge move. Phoenix, they're putting all their chips in a new owner. They're making all these moves just to lose to the Nuggets again. No, I'm just kidding. We'll see what happens, but on paper, they look fucking amazing. Luckily for the rest of the NBA, they don't play on the paper, they play on the court. So we'll see what happens. There's always different factors, but Bradley Beal to CP3, that's a definite upgrade at these stages of their career. So we'll see what happens. Wizards look like they're maybe blowing things up, so I don't know if they're going full rebuild, but yeah, lots to be coming. Lots of trades, right? This is the first one. The first domino is fall. We'll see how the rest fall. I was going to go into the draft, but that trade kind of bumped it a bit as well. But Thursday, June 22nd, NBA draft in New York, or in Brooklyn, sorry. Brooklyn, Barclays Center in New York. We know Victor Wembanyama will be the number one pick coming to my San Antonio Spurs. It'll be nice to see what number he's going to wear so I can put it on the wish list. But the rest of the order still to be decided. We're thinking Scoot's going to go second, but to where, we don't know. This Bradley Beal move has happened. Zion Williamson, there's talks that he might be on the move. So is there talk, like, will he go back home to Carolina and play in Charlotte? Or, like, what's happening? We'll see. Anybody seems movable. I don't know. NBA is wild, but we'll go from the draft on the 22nd, right in the summer league, see what these guys can do. But that wasn't the only thing wrapping up. The NHL, again, it seems like eons ago, wrapped up with another Florida team going home depressed. This time they went home real depressed. 9-3 game five was. It was close for a little, and then Vegas was just like, you know what? I'm done. Let's end this. Let's party. And they did. They took care of it. Jonathan Marchessault. Whoa. I think I had a few SSOs in there, but Marchessault won the Conn Smythe. Well deserved. You know, played great through and throughout. But these Knights fans, they were ready to party. Like, they had to wait a whole 6 years of existing. You know, the Nuggets 47, Knights 6 years. But very impressive feat. You know, it's not the fastest. In the NBA, the Bucks, Milwaukee Bucks, only took 3 years to win a championship, thanks to Lou Alcindor, which some of you might know him as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Major League Baseball, the Arizona Diamondbacks. 4 years. I was surprised at that. I remember it happening, but I didn't realize it was that quick. And they had Kurt Schilling and, you know, the big unit, Randy Johnson, who could have took that name and flourished in the porn industry, but still a good name for baseball. But the NFL, the Ravens, took 5 years. You know, when that wasn't a full expansion, they kind of ditched Cleveland and started up, crushing Browns fans along the way. And the NHL, the Oilers beat the Knights by 1 year when they did in the 80s with some guy named Wayne Gretzky. I don't know. The NHL draft's taking place June 28th, and I'm pretty sure we know the Blackhawks will be taking Bedard. And we'll go from the rink to where a lot of hockey players are probably right now, the golf course, you know, and the U.S. Open, only the 123rd version of it. And, you know, in the Los Angeles Country Club, and it came out to a great start. Ricky Fowler and Xander Schauffele, like 62 in the first round, you know, records for the U.S. Open. So people were like, really, how tough is this course? But it proceeded to get tougher. Those were just kind of anomalies. Tommy Fleetwood had a 63 in the final round, but no one really had outrageous scores. The people to watch, you know, Ricky Fowler, who had that great run, he came into the final round tied with Wyndham Clark. That Wyndham Clark. Wait, you don't know who that Wyndham Clark is? The one-time winner on the tour? We'll get more to him later, but Fowler came in tied with Clark. You know, Rory was a stroke behind, but yeah, Fowler dropped. Terrible start. He ended up shooting 5 over in the final round. People are saying he's like Chick-fil-A because he's not available on Sundays. But it's, yeah, another tough one for Ricky Fowler. You feel for the guy. But with him out of it, it became a 2-horse race. Rory McIlroy was chasing Wyndham Clark, and Clark just kept him a little at bay. Ended up hitting his par putt to win on the 18th, and Congratulations, Wyndham Clark. He won the U.S. Open. 29-year-old was hugging his dad, his sister. He just had to feel happy for the guy. So he had to have a little sip there. But F1 was back in Montreal. We were a little worried. It was very wet, all practice and qualifying. So we didn't know what we were going to get at the track. But Sunday was pretty nice. And coming into it, you had, surprise, Max Verstappen at the pole. Nico Hülkenberg was in second, but they found a violation under a red flag in qualifying. So they bumped him down to fifth in the grid. So Fernando Alonso moved up to the front row. Excuse me, and you had the two Mercedes behind him, and Ferrari were way down, 10th and 11th. Jesus, excuse me. Sorry, guys. Sergio Perez in 12th. But that was qualifying. Race went down Sunday. Logan Sargent from Williams. This is the first time he was out of a race. He had some early car trouble. George Russell got in some early trouble, had to do a long pit stop. He was able to stay in the race for like 2/3 before he had to leave. And, on the 35th lap, there was a little Russell tussle between Nick DeVries and Kevin Magnussen. They both had to go down the runaway lane, and it wasn't wide enough to turn, so they had to, back up. It looked like Mario Kart when you get stuck in a wall. But anyway, they made it work. Lando Norris was looking good. That's who I usually like to root for. He's from where my mom's from, but he got an unsportsmanlike behavior. He was driving a little slow. People couldn't pick up what he did, but they looked at. And at one point, he was driving slower than normal, kind of holding people up, and which is a safety issue. And the commentators were like, unsportsmanlike behavior for one of the nicest guys on the circuit. It's like yelling at a dog for peeing at the park. But weird analogies, but you like it. And Lando called out his team saying Esteban Ocon, his fucking wings all over, and you look and it's just wobbly city there. Luckily it didn't fly off and hit anybody, but the way it ended is like most races nowadays. Tell me if you've heard this. Max Verstappen led the whole race and won. Another Canadian GP win. Red Bull's 100th win in F1. Congrats to them. Another podium for the Spaniard, Fernando Alonso. Third position went to Lewis Hamilton. And I mentioned Ferrari with those terrible starting positions. They finished fourth and fifth. So good on them. Perez finished sixth. Alex Albon from Williams was up in seventh, which was needed considering Sargent stunk up the joint. But pretty good race, relatively uneventful. It stayed dry. That's good. There'll be a week off before we return to F1 for the Austrian GP July 2nd. Going from the track to the diamond, the Jays were lucky to take, one against the Twins, but they'd go to the beautiful Camden Yards. I got to go there one day in Baltimore. It looks great. But it wasn't so great for Bassett and Kikuchi in that series. They got chased out early in those games. Berrios played great, helping the Jays win one out of the three. But they'd leave Baltimore and they'd go down to Texas, take on the Rangers. And they won the first one, 2-1 game. But the Rangers won the second one, 4-2. They had back-to-back homers by Jung and Himes to kind of win that one. And the final game in the series, Jays sent Bassett out there. Rangers sent out Gray. Jays got to Gray early, going up big early. They'd get a huge lead. And the Rangers would come back, 6-5 suddenly, going into the bottom of the fifth. And then the Rangers would score another 3 runs, going up 8-6. So the Jays were up 6-0. Now they're finding themselves down 8-6. They got one back to make it 8-7, but Rangers took off again. Won the game 11-7. It could have been worse. George Springer made a sick catch in the outfield. Otherwise, that score could have been worse. So not ideal against Texas, getting another 1 out of 2. You keep winning these 1 out of 3s in these series, you're not going to be doing too hot. But, they wrapped up in Texas. Jays are going to the Sunshine State, take on the Miami Marlins for some interleague play. So that'll be starting Monday. And, the Jays, they're still not doing the best, but they're still out of the AL East basement. The Boston Red Sox are still in the basement, but it's crazy how the worst record in the AL East, like the Red Sox, would be basically tied with the AL Central. It's whack. Just reiterating how great the AL East is. Damn, why do the Jays got to be in such a tough division? The Rays continue to lead that division, the AL and the MLB, and the Braves lead the NL. So And a weird baseball news came out too with David Freese, former Cardinal player. Like they wanted to induct him into their Hall of Fame, and he just contacted the team and was like, "Nah, I don't think I quite deserve that. So no, I don't want it." Which is very strange in this day of promoting yourself and so me to have someone be like, "Nah, I don't think that's worthy." But I think he sold himself short. He had a great years with the Cardinals, and he won with them. So kind of weird, but to each their own, right? I mentioned I wouldn't be doing much footy talk, and there wasn't much out there. The MLS is one of the few seasons going on. FC Cincinnati's leading the Eastern Conference, and St. Louis SC and LAFC lead the West. But there were some big like international games going on. You had the UEFA Nations League, which had Spain and Croatia in the final. Nothing happened during the game. We went to extra time, like no goals, and there were no goals. So if you were looking for goals, you weren't finding them in this one. We go to penalties, and Croatia missed one, hit the post. Spain had a chance, fifth kick. They hit the bar. Like, oh, the momentum's swinging, only for Croatia to get stopped and for Danny Carvalho. Carvajal. Carvajal. Wow, check that one third time. His goal went in. But yeah, Spain won. Nations League. Some people in the Dutch team are like, why are we still playing? Like, what is a Nations League? They just want to rest. I mean, these seasons just continue to go. And in like North America, we had our own CONCACAF Nations League. US beat Mexico to get to the final. Canada beat Panama. So we're like, oh my God, Canada has a chance at a footy trophy for men. We know how great our women are at footy, but the men's side's not always that great. So we were all pumped. We're like, this is happening. Only for the US to like just super burst the bubble. 2 goals within 35 minutes in the first half. They went in 2-0. Not too great for Canada. And then more news for Canada. Atiba Hutchinson, longtime Canada player. He's a legend in Turkey. I know we don't talk about him enough here in Canada, but he made his first appearance for the Canadian team as a 19-year-old in 2003. But he's 40 years old now. He's done a great service. He's retiring. It's unfortunate he won't be a part of this, dare I say, golden generation of Canadian footy. But man, Atiba Hutchinson, you're the man. I applaud you, bro. CFL's still off, right? Week 2, we were doing that. Stampeders took care of the Red Blacks. Your Saskatchewan Roughriders had their home opener against those Blue Bombers, and the Blue Bombers bombed the shit out of them, yo. It didn't go well. Won 45-27. It was close in the first half, but they were outscored 28-13 in the second. Not good. Lions skunked the Elks. That sounds like a weird forestry story. And Argonauts had their season opener where they destroyed the Tiger Cats, And WNBA news. Vegas Aces are still dominating the West. Connecticut Sun still sitting atop the East. But there was a wild game between the Seattle Storm and Dallas Wings. Seattle had 39 points behind Jewel Lloyd, but Arike Abungawale, I mentioned her before. She is amazing to watch. She tried to drop 41 in the loss, but man, this Dallas Wings team is super fun to watch. They're very balanced, but watching Arike, whoo, amazing. Okay, well, those are the sports. And now this short, we're jumping in this one. But this one, I even debated doing it because I knew it'd be hard, but it's Father's Day. And so I thought, what better way to honor my dad than to mention him on the podcast, right? To a larger extent in one of the worst days of my life. So I said that pretty positively, but here we go. Yeah, like I've mentioned, well, I don't know how much I've mentioned, but my dad was diagnosed with bowel cancer in 2017. Hit us really hard. But my dad, he could spin anything into the most positive outlook, which is what he did. Really inspiring and something I try to do. But they said, you know what, we can remove this. We'll do this surgery. They removed what they needed. The tests look good. We were all pumped. Yes, this is pretty dope. But then, as cancer tends to do, it returned, this time to his liver. Now, they weren't just going to remove anything here. They're like, we got to do chemotherapy. Again, he was super positive, like, all right, let's do it. Hook me up. Let's get rid of this. So, again, super inspiring. And I went with him and my mom to the first treatment, took some notes. What should we look for? All this, because they had to put like a port in his arm. so it's easier to hook up to administer the medication. But yeah, we got all we needed to do, did everything they needed, but like it was a journey. And one time his port got infected, and like it created like almost a hole. They said they had never seen anything like it. He said that was one of the most excruciating things he'd ever been through. So it was pretty brutal, but we kept showing up, doing what we had to do. COVID came around, which kind of restricted things. I was laid off work for a bit, so I'd make myself available. He'd be like, "Dad, when's your treatment? I'll pick you up and drive you." Because he'd come to my place. He was adamant about driving there all the time. So he'd come pick me up. I'd drive him there, drop him off, take his car home because like parking, unfortunately, parking even for the sick, like it's not free. It adds up. So yeah, I'd take him home and then, or I'd take his van back to my place when he was done, pick him up, come home, and then he'd go home. So yeah, it was pretty good. Like, I those are pretty cherished memories now. Those little van trips, and they were just small, but it was a good way to visit. And during COVID, they didn't really want people visiting, but this was, we all had our own bubbles or whatever, and it was fine for me to drive them. But yeah, as time went on, I guess chemotherapy is starting to be less effective. So they tried, different things. One was like a TACE, I believe, where they target the spots on the liver and they just kind of zap them. Again, it looked like, hey, this is promising, but like cancer just comes back with a fury. And like my dad had a hernia at the same time, but they couldn't repair it because the risk of it spreading. So he had that pain going on as well. Like I still can't believe what he was going through and still like putting on a good face. It is making no sense, but that's just, what he did. But yeah, and like he went to get this checked out again. He's like, this hernia is getting worse. And they're like, the specialist was like, or the oncologist, I guess, just like, your liver is becoming like all cancer basically. And gave him 2 months. And that was the only time throughout the entire process. And my dad's demeanor changed a bit. But I could only imagine having someone saying you have like 60 days, like, whew, I couldn't imagine. But all this led to, yeah, September 12th, 2021. I had planned to go out to my parents, because I was coming out there like almost daily to help my mom out when she could. What she was doing for my dad on a daily basis just showed Unconditional Love 101. But I'd give her a hand, where I could. But then this morning I woke up, looked at my phone. I had a text around 6 in the morning. I guess my dad had fallen out of the bed and my mom couldn't get him in and she felt bad. Like, my dad had lost tons of weight, but, he's still a bigger guy, right? So she couldn't get him in. I got out there, got him in the bed so he could rest a bit. She felt just terrible. I'm like, this isn't your fault, Mom. Like, you're older now. You can't just pick dad up. So we got him in there later in that morning. Like, this was week one, NFL season was starting. So I'm like, Dad, you want to come out and watch? He said he did, but didn't, the pain. But he come out to make Mom happy. So, like, even in his worst pain, like, he's always thinking about others. So it's like, okay. So I walked a little ahead of him, backpedaling, because walking had become it was difficult for him. About halfway down the hallway to my parents' living room, he was about to fall. So I'm holding him up. Asked Mom to grab a chair. She grabs a chair, put him on there so he could rest a bit. And I dragged the chair to the living room so we can get him on the recliner. And like he was pretty exhausted by this, but we were able to get him comfy, blanket on him. He didn't like, no desire to eat, but we tried to get him to eat and do what we can. My brother had called. My mom had told him about like how much of a struggle that was, but he went out and got on a buy and sale and got him like a walker with wheels. So I'm like, oh, sweet, that'll help. But yeah, we put the football on. It was mentioned before my guy Aaron Rodgers. He was having like one of the worst games of his career. It may have been his worst game. My dad loved watching Aaron Rodgers fail, so that was making him smile. Plus, Pittsburgh was playing pretty well that day. And we even got some joints because, like that was a big thing. We'd hang out and watch sports and have some J's. But, this was more for the pain now. We'd get just ones to help with pain and, have some hoots and doing what we were doing. And then all of a sudden, like my brother says, like my dad's name and nothing. He's just sitting there. I'm like, oh, fuck. So jump to action, my brother. I'm like, call 911. And I just start chest compressions, you know. Unfortunately, this wasn't the first time I've had to do this. This happened to my dad before. So I knew right away chest compressions. My brother's freaking out on the phone, asking for an ambulance as I'm doing compressions. I'm like, come on, just stay here, Dad. Mom was crying. Dogs were barking. I was trying to stay calm, talk with the dispatcher. The phone was on speaker next to me now. Just keep doing compressions. First responders came in. So I back up, let them do their thing. This first lady grabs my dad's legs, just pulls him out of the recliner. His head smashed on the ground. I was like, fuck. It's like, I know she didn't mean to, but like, just seeing this and the whole everything, I was like, God damn it. And then, like, you know, they're doing their thing, they're hooking up equipment, and like, it was awful. They're trying to resuscitate him, they're doing all this. They're bombarding us with questions, you know, we're giving them off. I'm like, Mom, it's okay. I'll just take all the questions. And like, yeah, they approached us. They're like, this equipment's keeping him going, but he's not really there. And they had to do what they had to do. They pulled the equipment and left. It was brutal. My dad just laying there in the middle of the room. The dogs are all coming in for a cuddle. We get kind of usher them away. My mom had us put on like Celine Dion's Power of Love. That was their song. They hugged. Like, these are still memories burnt in here. I don't think those will ever go away. But yeah, I called my wife. She raced out. She was there for me the whole time. Had to deal with the coroner, you know, and the funeral people. Then you have to call everybody. Like, my mom was in no state to call anyone. So I made the list, went down. You know, each call is heartbreaking, and it's like fucking Groundhog Day because you gotta hang up and then deliver to the next person. So it was fucking brutal. But yeah, my oldest sister Catherine really stepped up. She helped with the costs and everything because, you know, when, like life, even when you die, it's fucking expensive. She organized Celebration of Life, got the pamphlets, so I always appreciate that. We did what we could to honor my dad, but I couldn't even get through a minute of this probably. Like, the whole event of losing a parent was so goddamn overwhelming. I'd break into tears. I'd mention my dad, and I couldn't. And, like, that saddened me because I'd like to talk about him and mention, like, you know, how great of a guy he was. So, straight up went to therapy, yo. Use the resources at work, set up with a counselor. Would 100% recommend. Sure, they're tearful sessions, and you need all of them. It's literally life changing. The only thing that bums me out is how, like, mentally and emotionally I've grown from those sessions, and like how it took to my fucking 30s to do it. That's the only thing, right? And like, it takes something this devastating to push you there, but highly recommend it. So if there's two takeaways from this podcast short, because I guess we're learning now, but first, tell everyone how much you love them. Make it weird. Your parents love the shit out of you for the most part. And the best way we can show that back is just be there. Short visits, any visits. Once they're gone, there's nothing you can do. Secondly, get help. No, I'm not in trouble and alerting you to call the authorities. Just telling you get help. Nothing wrong with it. You're not less of a person. There are resources galore out there for people in positions like this. You know, you're not alone. You know, but yeah, like I said, if I didn't do any of that, I'd probably be bawling. I wouldn't be through this. Like, I'm even impressed with myself how far I've gone here. But yeah, you know, you still get upset, you know, when some things are brought up or be a commercial or some, who knows? That shit it will never go away. Things can get a little easier, but it'll never be easy. And as I said, this past weekend was Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. A lot of my friends are dads now. Shout out to all those brothers. Proud of y'all. Keep doing it. Episode 15 in the books. Thanks for coming out. Ren City out.